Good morning. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. As you've heard so often on the news or either any publications related to COVID-19, these are unprecedented times. And so it's our objective today that we can share with you not only techniques but strategies that will help you to use so that you can begin to renew yourself and build resilience. What you learn today can be shared with your coworkers, with members of your team, family, and friends. So with that, can we move to the next slide? Okay. So given that we're all members of the utility industry, I'd like to start first with a safety moment. So today, whether you're working from home or offsite or in the field, it's important that our focus and attention is key so that we can remain safe and healthy. COVID-19 has had just a dramatic impact on all of our lives, those of our family, colleagues, and members and team members at work. Today, we're facing uncertainty, altered schedules. I know my schedule has been very different in the last 60 days. And if you're accustomed to working in an environment with large teams or coworkers, being sheltered at home can sometimes feel like social isolation. The feelings of stress, anxiety, fear, and sadness can be quite taxing. You know, as reflected here, when you're feeling these things, you can begin to feel depleted. And so these feelings can relate to you not being focused and, as a result, not paying attention. So it's critical and crucial not to let today's events or even the negative feelings that you have that might deplete you. It's important to identify ways that we can renew and build out resiliency, and that's what we'll be covering today. So being focused and attentive is very important to ensuring your safety and the safety of those around you. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so let me start off by introducing myself. Many of you know me. I'm Karen Taylor-Herring, and I'm the Vice President and OE Practice Lead for Bridgewater Consulting. I've had over 25 years of experience working in the utility, banking, and the government sector. I've been at Bridgewater for more than 5 years, and I've had the pleasure of working with a number of you on the call. Many of you also know Kathy Chargala. She's the Principal Advisor for the ORC Effectiveness Practice here at Bridgewater. She's been an instrumental factor as we've worked both to build and expand the Bridgewater service offerings of organizational effectiveness across many utilities. What you may not know about Kathy is that she's a PhD in humanistic science. She's not only an OC and ProSci practitioner, but she's worked in the utility industry across not only the United States, but also Canada. She's also licensed in heart math. She's a coach and a trainer in personal resilience. She's been involved in a number of health nonprofit organizations as both a mentor and a coach. I'm reflecting back in February, Kathy and I were talking about her nonprofit work and some of the things that she was doing in sharing her expertise around building personal resilience. As we had further discussions about how important it is not to let the challenges or the changes that we're facing today deplete us, that began the generation and the genesis of the webinar that we have today. Next slide, please. You know, Bridgewater has worked very hard to ensure that as a full service management company, it has been with intent that we've hired a team of utility experts that have not only the experience, the competencies, the leadership, and the knowledge. And it is through this leadership attributes that we've really worked hard to be a trusted partner to our clients today. And in the spirit of partnership, we've created this seminar to help you as you face these difficult times. As we've heard so very often, we're all in this together. Next slide. Oh, next slide. Okay. We face the uncertainty of a new normal. Our families, work responsibilities and roles, and even our wellness face a barrage of various changes. We're accustomed to working with change, particularly in the workplace, and we typically manage those changes with the discipline of organizational change management. But the changes we face today require a different discipline. Building personal resilience is so very important as we continue to navigate the new demands on how we live our life with disruptive changes. Taking care of your body, your mind are going to be imperative to building your personal resilience. Today, we're going to share with you the ability of building your energy level under pressure. Next slide. Okay. So, we are seeing today that in the organizational effective discipline, employee engagement is gaining quite a bit of attention, focus, and popularity. The strategies in connecting your mind and body can assist you as you work to lead your workforce through these times when employees or team members might be feeling isolation, overwhelmed, or simply fearful. It's been noted that engaged employees are more connected to their companies, and they work more around ensuring that they're aware of their surroundings. And we believe the information being shared today will help you and can be used to help your team in building resilience. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to Kathy. She'll share her experience, her knowledge, as well as the science around building resiliency. And one last thing, during the webinar you have any questions, please flag your screen in the chat box, and you can type in your question. That'll give us visibility. And again, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this time with us. Kathy?
Thank you, Karen. Next slide, please. So I'm really excited about today because I really have a lot of passion around helping people build resiliency and being the best that they can be in home, at work. And today we're going to take a look at what is personal resiliency. Take a look and understand a little bit of the science behind it. And then we're going to take a look at some techniques and approaches and some strategies that you can apply immediately after this webinar. We'll have an open Q&A at the end where if you'd like to ask questions or share any information that you're going through, we'd love to hear that. So on the bottom right hand of your screen, you're going to see a little arrow that you can collapse and bring up the Q&A. There's a chat box in there, so anytime during the webinar, if you'd like to enter your question, please feel free to do that. Next slide, please. So what is personal resiliency? Individual resiliency involves our emotions, our thoughts, and behaviors that promote personal well-being and mental health. And as illustrated, you see on the left-hand side that if we have a lot of depleting activities going on or depleting emotions because we're stressed about life changes or work stress or financial stress or emotional stress, that puts us in a position where we're not as focused, we're not as productive because we're distracted by those things that are going on. So today we're going to kind of learn how do we manage ourselves and be more resilient, more adapting to our situations, and manage this as we move forward. So when we hold on to depleting stressors, it creates momentum, which results in negative stress responses. I've heard from a lot of utilities that they're noticing that, people that typically have a calm demeanor are a little bit more agitated or frustrated because of all the changes that are going on. And as you all know, we can see what's going on with our peers, but there may be other things that are going on outside of the workplace that are adding to, individual stressors. So individuals can develop the ability to withstand, to adapt to, and recover from stress and adversity and maintain or even return to a state of well-being just by using some effective techniques that we're going to talk about today. Next slide, please. So let's look into the science behind this. So HeartMath is a nonprofit organization that's been around since 1991, and they have a deep sense of caring about people and helping them to become resilient. So HeartMath the whole system empowers people to self-regulate their emotions and behaviors, which reduces stress, will increase your resiliency, and unlock inner guidance for making better decisions. When we're more clear-minded, we're better at adapting and making good decisions. So Heart Math, as you can see, they have been published in Oprah magazine. NASA uses these techniques, Cedars-Sinai, Stanford School of Medicine, and there's a whole bunch of other organizations that are leveraging these techniques within their workforce. There's also been over 300 peer reviews and independent studies that have outlined the outcome, the positive outcome of using these techniques. Next slide, please. So, key to building resiliency. As the image shows, Heart Math is the science and relationship between your heart and your brain. And here's a key fact. Did you know that the heart sends more messages to your body than your brain does? And that's scientific evidence of that. So coherency is a state where your physical system is in sync and in balance with your heart, your mind, your emotions. Also including is your nervous system, your hormones, your immune system. They're all working in coordination together, right? They're all in sync. And renewing emotions is a state of coherence. And when I say renewing emotions, when we feel gratitude or appreciation, that keeps us in sync with our heart rhythm, our respiratory, our blood pressure, allows us to be in that coherent state. You're going to hear me saying coherent state a lot through this webinar. And we're not talking about relaxation. That is something different, right? We want to be in a more coherent state so that we are more focused on what we're doing, more active, more aware. Next slide, please. Heart signals affect the brain centers involved in emotional perception, decision-making, reaction time, social awareness, and ability to self-regulate. So when we're engaged in our hearts, that appreciation, that feeling, that good feeling, the mind slows down and our thoughts become more rational and focused. So we're able to perform better. So this gives us more access to the part of our brain that does the smart thinking. And I know we all want that because I know I do. So it also helps with decision making. So from a more balanced, coherent perspective, it helps us achieve better outcomes. Next slide, please. When we prepare employees, and that includes ourselves as well, when we're prepared as well as individuals, we're better prepared to recover and adapt to changes. And that allows us to bounce back quicker and easier. So when we address the stressors that are depleting us, such as the ones that we see on the left, and we focus on what is going on with us, being more aware of what is stressing us is really key. Because if we're not aware, then we're impacting ourselves by being unsafe because we're not paying attention, we're distracted. We may find ourselves burning out or slowing down or having negative responses to situations and individuals. And this has an effect on the organization. It impacts our safety records, our reliability to service, increase in maybe injuries or absenteeism, workforce planning if people are out because they're stressed. All of these things will drive impacts to the organization. So just with a show of hands, if you look on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a little hand. Click that hand if you sense or feel that you're either individually going through this or your organization is going through this. Yeah, that's what I thought. We're all going through this at some level, whether personal or we know somebody or within our organization. What I'd like to do is I'd like to reach out. Denise, I see your hand is up from Edison. Could you give us a insight as to what you're experiencing?
Sure, Kathy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Actually, I'm seeing both ends of the spectrum here. So one, from one end where employees are just not following safety rules to the extent that we had to actually shut down a particular service center, not continuing to shake hands, not social distancing, sharing phones, things that actually caused the virus to spread. So, didn't get to talk to any of those individuals to know what kind of stressors were causing them to sort of, just not be safe, but the impact of the organization was very significant, as you can imagine, from having to quarantine a group of employees to having to disinfect a particular facility to having to have other groups take over the work for the reduction to the workforce, right? But at the other end of the spectrum, I'm seeing certain groups who have a laser sharp focus. They are their productivity has gone through the roof, and I worry about them too because they're working longer hours, and I worry about burnout for those groups.
Right. So work stress may be high for them.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thank you, Denise. Also from Edison, Nelson Herrera, can you share with us what things you might be seeing?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. As Denise mentioned, I think we're all experiencing the same situation. Definitely, there's many challenges that we're looking at, and with these challenges, we need to increase that employee engagement. I do see my team. We're actually going into our 10th week of working from home, and the team has worked very well. And I've been very impressed with my team and maintaining that work productivity. But as Denise mentioned, I'm also concerned with their psychological safety as well as their well-being. There's definitely many distractions. I had a couple employees that never did plan to work from home, so they did not have a workstation, and that created some challenges where employees were seeking different type of settings, purchasing equipment from online. We did some ergonomic assessments over the phone just to make them feel more adjusted to their new surroundings. But at the same time, with increasing productivity, we overwhelm our employees with meetings, and I talk to many of my employees. They go from meeting to meeting. Sometimes some meetings extend longer. Sometimes we go into the lunch hour and after work. And we just need to be considerate in scheduling these meetings, respecting people's time, and as well as giving them time to regroup and take a break, a stretch break in between meetings. So definitely, along with all these distractions, I've been participating in a lot of team huddles, sync-up calls. I try to ping them through messaging as often as I can, just to make sure that they're doing okay. Because you do feel that some might be a little isolated and miss that social interaction that they had at work. So you just want to make sure that you make yourself available to them and you're flexible with their schedules.
Wonderful. Thank you both, Denise and Nelson, for your insight on that. By building greater resiliency and the capacity for individuals to be able to bounce back and process everything that's going on around them, when they're in that coherent state, which we're going to talk about that next, you're setting up people to be successful, to be able to perform well in their job, be better prepared, have greater flexibility, make smarter decisions, and keep a cool head when there's challenging situations that may arise. Next slide. When employees identify and understand and actually become aware of their feelings and their emotions, they're able to express themselves without turning to more harmful coping mechanisms. And I'll tell you a little personal story of myself. Years ago, there was a time where I was really stressed out, and I had been doing biofeedback for years in hospitals and different settings with clients. And I was personally going through a lot of stress back then. And I thought, oh, I have techniques. I know how to handle this, and began to use some of the heart math techniques. And they had one technique where you could watch your heart rate going up and down and, think of that positive thing. And for a week, I could not get that to go down. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've had years of experience doing this. Why can't I do this? What had happened was I had become normalized into this emotional state, that the stress became the norm. And it wasn't until I started using these techniques through heart math that I realized that sometimes we think we're okay and we're really not. Our bodies are telling us things, signaling to us when we're stressed by our heart rate going up. As you can see on the left-hand side, this incoherent state is jagged, right? It's not in alignment. It's not in sync with the rest of your body. But when you go into a coherent state, you see the line is more smooth, it's more calm, it's more relaxed. You're more in line with your emotions, your thoughts, your body functions. And that's the state in which we perform the best. So how do we change our current state from incoherent to coherent? Let's go to the next slide, please. So transformational change requires reinforcement, right, that builds on personal resiliency and sustainment. So by connecting to renewing emotions, those are the feelings of gratitude, appreciation, love, happiness, you create a state of coherence. You change your physical functioning just by shifting your thoughts and emotions. You can improve your mental and emotional well-being by using these techniques. And I have seen within 3 to 4 weeks, even less than that, people have made a shift. So with practice, you can make those changes within your life. So let's learn how to access your heart's intuition to become the best version of yourself. Next slide. Quick coherence technique. So this is what we're going to do. So I encourage anyone on the call, if you'd like to follow along with me, to actually do this exercise. It's only 2 steps. This only takes a few seconds, and we're going to start it now by bringing your attention to your heart area. Begin to notice your breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And then I want you to start slowing your breath down to where it's comfortable and bringing that attention to your chest area, to your heart. And now I want you to bring in a thought of appreciation, a thought of something that just makes you happy when you think about it, something that you're grateful for. And just hold that for a moment. Wonderful. With a show of hands, how many people felt a slight shift, even if it's just a slight shift? Yeah, wonderful. So what you're feeling is you're feeling, as the picture indicates, if you were in any state of, frustration or worry or any negative emotion that you might be worrying about, when you use this technique, you're shifting your thoughts, your energy, and your well-being into a more aligned state, which is going to make you perform at your highest level. Next slide, please. So heart math techniques help you shift the rhythms of your heart to a more healthy state. You create more resiliency because now you're creating a baseline that allows you to bounce back quicker. and you can sustain a positive behavior or reactions to things or perception to things. So when you change your heart rhythm, you change your brain function. So among many benefits, personal coherence, you increase your energy, you have clearer thinking, you enhance your immune system and your functions within your body, and you make better decisions. So how do we use this technique? Each morning, I do this every morning. I wake up, I get into my quick, coherent state, get in alignment with feeling good, and my perception of the day then changes because I'm going to have a good day, because I'm going to start my day off like that. You could do it before going into a meeting. So maybe there's a meeting that maybe it's going to be a little stressful. Maybe there's going to be some tension in the conversation. Take a few seconds. You could even do it while you're in the meeting. Nobody even has to know. You just pay attention to your breath, bring in that good feeling into your heart, hold on to that for a few minutes, and then go about your day, go about your meeting. You can even use this technique after a stressful situation to gain insight. So sometimes things will happen and our perception may go to a negative place and we're wondering, why did that happen? Use this technique to get more insight to your inner wisdom, to maybe see things in a more clear perspective. Even during challenging situations, when you're in the thick of it, sometimes you just need to have a clear head and perception of what's going on before you respond. So this is another example of when you can use this technique. Next slide, please. So here we're going to talk about how do you take that quick coherence state and leverage it when you're communicating. So here, the steps are very simple. The first step is before you communicate, whether it's a verbal communication or even if you're writing something, you just want to get into that clear state, go into the quick coherence, pay attention to your breath, bring that good feeling, that rejuvenating feeling in, sit with it for a moment, and then begin your conversation. Step 2, which is we all know in all of the probably training we've all taken around communication, is we have to listen without prejudging or pulling in any drama, because that's going to change our energy level. It's going to change our emotional state to something else. Wait for the response from the other person. Allow them to finish so there's a two-way conversation. Step 3, which is really important, is to confirm what you've heard to ensure that there is a mutual understanding between both parties. So this approach, where would you leverage this? Maybe before and during a conversation with somebody difficult or a difficult situation or conversation that you may have to have. Maybe during your one-on-one or performance reviews with your staff. Maybe there's something that you're going to have to deliver a certain message and you're uneasy about it. Use the coherent state to get you in a good place so that your communication to them comes from a good, positive perspective place. Also, your team members. As we heard from Denise and from Nelson, you've got people that are stressing out, maybe working too much. Maybe when you do your team meetings, you help them focus and align their attention to using this technique. Next slide, please. Here are 3 strategies that we're going to take a look at that can help you build and sustain that resiliency with yourself or with your teams. Strategy 1, prep. Set the tone for the day. Just as my example, I told you every morning I do it. I actually do it at night as well, just as a reflection of the day. Or if I know I'm going into a situation that might be stressful, I will prep and do this. It's kind of what we call pre-paving. Pre-pave the day, right? Pre-pave that meeting you're going to go into to set your intentions that you're going to come from a good place, good feeling place. Strategy number 2 is that when you're in the situation or that challenging situation is occurring, you can tell yourself, okay, I'm going to stop for a minute. Shift your attention back to your breathing bring in that good feeling, and reset, and then continue with whatever your actions are. So even when you're in the midst of something, you can take action by just telling yourself, okay, stop for a moment, take a break, and nobody knows you're doing, you're doing it anyway. Strategy 3 is to sustain this, it requires regular practice. So in order for it to be unconsciously competent, right, where you're not thinking about it, the more you practice this, for instance, I went into this quick coherent state before our webinar. Because I've been doing this for so long, I didn't have to say, okay, Kathy, stop, breathe, bring in the good feeling. The more you do it, the less you're going to be thinking about the steps. You're just going to go right into that good feeling state, and you're going to be able to move through your day, move through the situation. So practice is very, very important. Very important. And it also helps you avoid replaying some of the same depleting feelings, right? So I'll give you this example. A lot of times I see groups of people may come together and start talking about something that's going on, and it's not positive, and they keep talking about it, which keeps them in that state, that momentum of feeling maybe that negative emotion. When we help them shift into a more positive perspective, they can start having discussions around the solutions and the next steps. Next slide, please. So applying these techniques can be done across the organization. You can leverage this by supporting your workforce that are stressed. This also helps you develop human performance, right? If they're communicating better, they're making better decisions, then that helps across the organization. You can help individuals adopting change. You might have a major initiative going on, or even it's a small project. If you have people that are resisting that change, this might be a technique to help them communicate better or help them, personally go through the change. Coaching leaders, coaching your teams, coaching individuals, this is a technique that's just so easy and so powerful that you can honestly, and because I have passion around it, you can change a person's life if you give them these techniques. Next slide, please. So we're going to open this up to questions and sharing. So what I want to just remind you again, in the bottom right-hand corner, you have a Q&A. If you open that up, there's a text box in there that you can place your questions. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Lizzie, who's going to let us know what questions we have.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Okay. So we have quite a few questions coming in, and we're ahead of schedule, so we'll be able to go ahead and answer those. One of them is there a way for my team to assess their own stress level? If I feel like one of the employees is overworking, but they don't see it within themselves, I'm concerned about that type of conversation is the type of question that I'm seeing.
Okay, great question. So HeartMath does provide a free condensed version of a wellness and stress survey, which will help people to identify what categories, whether it's work stress or relationship, they'll be able to get at least an indicator. And it's free, and we will be providing that as information at the end of the webinar. Information will be sent out to all participants on that individual assessment that's free through HeartMath. We also, within Bridgewater, can work with teams to come in and provide maybe a full survey, which gives all areas of stressors and help to build maybe the team dynamics and support maybe a manager or team lead. with a full-blown survey, but there is a free one out there for HeartMath, which we'll be sending out to everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Another question is asking, is this information going to be available for a workshop that they could do perhaps with their own team?
Absolutely. If they want to reach out to Karen or myself, we'd be more than happy to set up a session with your teams and discuss what that may look like and tailor it to your needs. Also keep in mind that any surveys that we may do as part of that service, the information is kept confidential, so it's not going to go into great detail about a person's personal things that are happening. It'll just give you insight as to what areas, such as they might be worried about work stress, or they might be worried about relationship or others, and it will give information to the individual to then help with what they need to maybe focus their attention on, and for the leader to know maybe what individuals might need more one-on-one support.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kathy. We do have a comment from somebody in the audience that is thanking for the information. They found it very enlightening and eye-opening for their team, so that's good to know.
Great.
And we still have time for more questions. If people want to continue to send in some additional questions here, we can definitely do that. One more question that I'll go ahead and review is, how does this apply to organizational effectiveness in a project that I'm going to be doing?
Within organizational change management or org effectiveness, a lot of times when you're going through identifying the impacts to the impacted audience, you're going to find that a percentage of your audience is resisting for some reason or another. It may be that they don't want to change, they like the old way of doing things, or there may be just, they're overloaded with change, like there's too many things changing at once. So leveraging these techniques, whether it's how to communicate, using the quick coherence, or helping those individuals that might be resisting the change or feeling the stress of all the change, you can leverage these techniques during your project by offering workshops or maybe just a quick huddle, as Nelson was saying he was doing with his team. Pull the team together. Talk about your personal experiences, just as I have, where you're giving them experiences to let them know, hey, you're not alone. We're all going through some level of stress. Some may be going through more than others. Some may be going through things that you have no idea what they're going through. So by opening a dialogue with your team and creating a safe place for them to feel that it's okay for them to share, I'm worried. I'm worried about my daughter. She got her hours got cut and she can't pay her bills, or, somebody's in the hospital and they're worried about their family. The more that you allow people to share what's going on with them, the better you as a leader are in helping them. Because once you know that they're going through those things, then you can have more discussions with them on providing them with tools and techniques, as we've shared here. And there's a whole suite of techniques and skills that are out there that can be leveraged. But these really make a difference in a person's life, because it shifts not only their thoughts, but their emotions and the physical impact that they're going to have on their well-being.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question here that is kind of a question and a suggestion, I think. And are there some general courtesies that we can employ to give folks some space when scheduling digital meetings? Do you have any suggestions around that, or what works for others?
So are we talking about in a meeting setting, setting time aside to be able to get people kind of in a good state? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it could be to that. It doesn't explain it that way, but there are there some general courtesies we can employ to give folks some space when scheduling meetings? Sorry.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing in regards to that question is if you have team meetings, I would set a time for people to get into a good place. And you can do that quickly by just asking everybody, hey, before we start this meeting, let's set some time. Maybe put it on the agenda that we're just going to have a quick, let's everybody get in alignment and walk them through the technique of just thinking of something good, and let them feel that difference and have maybe a dialogue about it. And that will set your meeting for success moving forward. So having the consideration to put that time in your meetings would be something I would do at either doing a one-on-one. Maybe you have two individuals in a team meeting where you have team dynamic issues, right? You've got two people that aren't quite meshing together. Maybe you get them together, and as a consideration prior to going into that discussion, you might have them do this exercise. Share with them the communication approach using that quick coherence, and then beginning the dialogue.
Okay, great. Those are great suggestions. Thank you. Now, another question that just came in is, how do we ask employees to share if their personality is very private and rather not to share
personal things?
Yeah.
So I think we have to keep in mind that individuals could be extroverts or introverts. If any of you on the call have ever taken any kind of Myers-Briggs training, there are some people that are more introverted, meaning they have to internally process things before they can speak them out loud, especially if they're things that might be emotional. So I would suggest not forcing anybody to have to share something personal. I would open it up, and once one or two people start sharing, then depending on how the response is with the group, if it's supportive, then that person will be more apt to share if they feel that there's a supportive environment. But I would never have anybody share something that they didn't want to or force them to share. Allow people to communicate in that open setting, but then always offer if anybody needs additional assistance or just wants to have a one-on-one. As a manager, you can say, I'm available. Please call me, reach out to me if there's anything that you need to talk about, but let them know that there are resources and that you're available to them outside of the group meeting.
Perfect. I think that answers their question. And that is all the questions that we have so far. If anybody wants to send in some additionals, or we can give you some time back.
No. Well, not quite yet, Lizzie. But thank you, and I really appreciate the engagement and people such as Nelson and Denise, being able to share their respective experience and the observations and the challenges they're facing in these times today. I'd also like to thank Kathy because she has worked tirelessly to put this webinar together, to be able to not just share the knowledge and experience she had, but to create a forum that would allow people to feel comfortable to have an exchange, such as what we've just had. If you can go to the next slide, Chris. Kathy had referenced the fact that, as being a participant, tomorrow you will get an email from Bridgewater Marketing and Communications. And in that email will be a recorded session of today's webinar. And then there's also a number of handouts, and we consider this a resource packet handout. And so we'd like you to be able to, work through it, look through it, see if it can help you and also to offer ourselves as being available if you have any additional questions or you have any concerns or you just like to even talk through some of the material that was covered today. And so with that, you'll get the handout which talks about HeartMath and additional resources that you might use as availability to understand the material that we covered today, and also the handout around a case study, and then another reference to additional resources. Kathy had mentioned that there is a assessment test that you could take that's free, and she's offering that source that you can look to. And then additionally, should you want to do something that's more structured around your workforce team, we're available to provide support. But again, I just want to thank everyone for their participation and for the engagement. And, these are tough times, and we are dealing with not just change, but change saturation. But it is evident that as leaders, you're concerned about how to not only help yourself, but those of your family members and your workforce. So I think, many people are lucky to have leaders such as you who are at the helm, helping them as they navigate these troubled waters. But it sounds like soon we'll have some sort of normality, and just very happy to be able to work with you and be a partner with you. Thank you.